I was thinking this morning, after our Tom Brady exclusive, a lot of things that Tom Brady talked about. And then he left our show, J-Mac, and he did his podcast and brought up another gem. And I think it's something you and I, as dads, have to go through all the time. Do you know what that is?
Taking out the garbage, cleaning up dog poop, being a chauffeur to your kids. Those things ring a bell, maybe?
No.
Okay.
So we'll start with this. Brady and Belichick, very complimentary of each other on their his Let's Go podcast with Jim Gray. And there's a very interesting moment in that podcast that Brady brings something up. And I don't even know if Tom realizes how important this is. And I think we're losing a little bit of this in football. It was a key element to greatness in football. Are we losing a little bit of this element? We had hard conversations. Is this generation of football player willing to have those? Or are you going to scrub your social media account because they want to franchise tag me? Which, by the way, you collectively bargained. You negotiated it as players. Franchise tag is part of the negotiation. You agreed to it. See guys scrubbing their social media accounts. We have elevated, especially quarterbacks and high school football players, 7-on-7 drills, gassed up all day on social media, participation trophy generation. We know that to begin with. Now you go to college, there's bidding wars, tens of millions of dollars for an unproven college quarterback who was really good in high school. There's a lot of good high school quarterbacks. Football players increasingly, and I've said this, I can feel the NBA bit by bit seeping into the NFL. I love both, but they're different cultures, and there is a reason, and this is substantial, that in a sport like football, where people tackle each other, we just had a 20-year dynasty where careers last fewer than 4 years. We had a 20-year dynasty. In basketball, they don't tackle each other. In fact, they got rid of the hand check. You can barely brush each other. And yet, dynasties last like 3 years. How is it possible? Because in basketball, you can't have the tough conversation with your star. Warriors were walking on eggshells for every moment after the first title of the Kevin Durant relationship. Belichick was barking at Brady until the very end. It lasted 6-7 times longer than NBA dynasties do now. I worry about that. In a sport where, let's be honest, there's a clock on it, sometimes on the sidelines, there's really hard conversations. And we all sort of understand that, right? But what about the hard conversations outside of the game? Kyler Murray was pandered to. Arizona is now a disaster of a franchise. Russell Wilson, Denver pandered to. Yeah, bring all your coaches in the building. A disaster. Pandering doesn't work, even with stars. Remember, NFL MVPs don't win Super Bowls. It is a collective. It is a team. Brock Purdy at the most important position. A 7th-round pick. The last guy picked got him to the NFC Championship. You have to have a team. It's a collective. The quarterback needs protection from his blind side, a running game, the right coordinator. Football players understand that. You go back to Troy Aikman, Jimmy Johnson, Belichick, and Brady. You go back to Terry Bradshaw and Chuck Noll. Those are years of tough conversations, not just on the sidelines, in meetings, in rooms. Like, I understand in politics and sports and business, sometimes cultures are too toxic. I mean, used to be able to grab players and slam them into the turf. That wasn't right. The NFL didn't take, like, concussions seriously. That wasn't right. And there are moments that have been just too insensitive in business and sports. I agree. But what I worry about is the pendulum has swung so far the other way. I wonder if Baltimore is having this very issue. that Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are struggling to have a hard conversation, which is, Lamar, last 2 years, you've been hurt at the end of the year. You've been a bad playoff quarterback. We don't care what Cleveland played Deshaun Watson. They're a terrible franchise. The Browns have been looking up at us forever. We don't care what they do with Deshaun Watson. We think you're better than Deshaun Watson, but we're not going to let the Browns set the precedent. I'm not saying that the NFL shouldn't get better with concussions. I think they have, even this year, improved. I'm not saying the NFL shouldn't listen to players. It's not what I'm saying. It's a relationship, head coach and quarterback. But I do wonder when Brady says that to Belichick, and Belichick talked back to Brady about this. They had hard conversations, like really hard conversations, not just in games, all week, disagreed all the time. Tom didn't rush to scrub his social media account. Ask yourself this. Why does the NBA, where careers last longer, they've taken away the hard foul, they've taken away the hand check, the forearm in the back, do dynasties last so briefly? Because you can't have the hard conversation. Pat Riley, LeBron James. Pat's like, no, we got to have some real conversations here. LeBron didn't want him. He was out. And LeBron's great. I'm not denying that. But ask yourself, how do we have a 20 years, average career, 3.5, 4. How do we have a 20-year dynasty? The Patriots won with a great receiver. They won without great receivers. They won with a great defense. They won with good special teams. But they weren't the best team. But they were the team always willing to have hard conversations. It matters. It really does. And I worry that sometimes that's why I love this next story. Sean Payton yesterday. I loved every second of this. Sean Payton yesterday, new coach of the Denver Broncos, very excited for this, was asked by the media about Russell Wilson's personal coach being in the building. And not only do I love the answer, but Sean Payton leaves no wiggle room. There is no pause. He's rolling his eyes and shaking his head as the question is answered. And by the way, it's different now. Because Pete Carroll had been fired twice in the NFL as a head coach and had a losing record before Russell got there. So there were a lot of people, I was one of them, that said, maybe Russell Wilson saved Pete Carroll's career. Then things changed. Russell left and Pete still made the playoffs, and Russell was a disaster in Denver with a much better roster. Here comes Sean Payton, who won winning record with Taysom Hill, Teddy Bridgewater. Forget Drew Brees, where he won a Super Bowl. It's all different now. Listen, it's okay. I've seen my entire life. Really great quarterbacks briefly have a really bad coach. But it never looked that bad. Hell, Baker Mayfield with Freddie Kitchens looked better than that. And Baker's not Russell Wilson. Justin Herbert came in with a coach that got fired and the worst offensive line in the league. 31 touchdowns, 10 picks as a rookie. Tom Brady went to Tampa, a dysfunctional organization, won a Super Bowl in a pandemic when they had no preseason. I'm not saying last year had to be great and pretty and efficient, but it was awful. It's one of the worst offenses in league history. And I know Nathaniel Hackett was over his skis. It's okay. He's probably a great guy. Been told he's a great guy. He's just not an NFL head coach. He's an NFL coordinator, and maybe a great one. Maybe he'll turn the Jets offense around. But it can't look as bad as it looked in Denver. It can't be that bad. And it was awful. And so this is the classic example. No pandering by Sean Payton. He would not mince words. He would not pause. He left no wiggle room. Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with that. That won't be happening here. No pandering. It's why the NFL is king. Because MVPs don't win Super Bowls. It's a collective. It's a team. You coach hard. You talk hard. You make people uncomfortable. It's understood. And for the record, the player almost always benefits from it. Kyler Murray needs harder coaching. Russell Wilson this year needs competent, harder coaching. Brady acknowledges, I needed hard coaching. I loved hard coaching. That answer by Sean Payton was absolutely perfect. He wouldn't even acknowledge the full question. Yeah, we won't be, nope, I'm not, that's for that, yep, no, there's no, we're not going to do that. That's exactly the way to handle it. The relationship has now changed. For years and years, I thought, maybe Russell's saving Pete. Then Pete made the playoffs with Geno Smith, and I watched last year, coaches in the building, too many people in the building. The NFL, do not pander. Tough questions, hard conversations. The player, for the record, almost always wins with that. Andy Reid is acknowledged on this show. He'll bark at Patrick Mahomes regularly. And Patrick loves it, and Patrick benefits from it.
It all kicks off Super Bowl Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern on Fox.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.